Welcome back, María-Victoria Albina. I'm so excited to see your face, to be able to chat with you, to continue this conversation. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always such a delight.
Oh, I agree. I was laughing a little in preparation for this episode because I was talking with my husband about this idea of overfunctioning. And actually, he's the one who brought it up. Like, have you heard of this idea of overfunctioning? I'm like, in fact, I have. And I have a really great episode for you to listen to. And it started drumming up all these ideas and questions that I have for you that I feel like can unpack in like a whole another episode. So that's what we're doing today. We're getting deeper.
I love that. I love going deeper. Getting deeper, it's so good. Because this stuff, I mean, it's not just how we're living right now. It's all our childhood survival skills and wounding. It's ancestral. It's how we saw our parents living, right? Like, that's some deep business we're in.
Deep business. And it's not something that, I mean, I feel like everyone is in it, right? Like we are all experiencing it at some level, and hopefully this really translates to everyone. So if anyone doesn't know you, can you just tell listeners a little about yourself, the work that you do, your podcast, all the goodies?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first name is María-Victoria. My last name is Albina. And I have to say it that way or people start calling me Maria.
Got it.
So
got it.
I've learned over the years. So María-Victoria Albina, I'm a family nurse practitioner by training. I worked in holistic and functional medicine for many, many years and took everything I learned in that practice towards life coaching when I realized that it was really the trauma I was treating after all. I have a podcast called Feminist Wellness and what else? What are my words? It's funny how you give your own elevator pitch like 400 times of your bio.
Times.
And then my brain's like, wait, what? Oh, I don't know. Who am I, Ashley? What am I up to?
What's your zodiac sign? Let's throw that in there. What are your big three?
My big three, Leo.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, you remember. So Leo on the sun and Sag and Taurus. So
Taurus rising?
Taurus rising.
Ooh, girl, that's exciting. You have so Jupiter is moving into Taurus today.
I know.
Which is very just like, it's yummy and it's like all about you right now in that first
Thank you. Also, always tell Leo that it's all about her. So this episode's all about my hair. Is that correct?
I think it is.
Okay,
we've got the visuals now since we've last recorded. We have like full video. So
it's so fancy. No, it's a delight. Yeah, and I'm glad that Mercury is out of the Gatorade, and that's really good.
Did you have any wild Mercury retrograde stories? Anything that just like blew up?
There's a couple. Well, you know how that thing where like exes will haunt you either like in real life or in your dreams?
Yeah.
I had like 3 nights in a row of dreaming about an ex of mine who was person with very no good behaviors, and then dreamt about my partner's ex. Like the last night of Mercury retrograde, like I could not get that girl out of my head. Like I kept trying to wake myself up and be like, get it out. But she was relentless with the power of Mercury behind her.
I guess.
So,
do you ever like think like, okay, what do I need to know from this, or do you let it go?
Well, because Mercury was in the microwave, I knew that it was the stars and not like if it had been like a regular Wednesday, I'd be like, what's going on, Psyche?
Yeah.
What are you up to? But I feel like it was just haunting. I don't know. What do you? I mean, what would you have gone deeper? Would you have?
Dreams are funny because like everyone that I've talked to on the show about dreams, it's that they make no sense. They are meant to be completely all over the place. Like that's their point. And you don't really they don't really make sense, or like we can't necessarily pull lessons from it until we're conscious in our everyday life. And then something hits you and you're like, oh, that's what that was. Right. Which helps me like, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on in this weird dream. Right. And I dream exclusively about high school, only about high school. Wait. Isn't that weird?
Yes. Yes, it is. I adore you, and that is weird.
Yeah, maybe we need to unpack that when it comes to like.
So now this hour is no longer about the good Leo's hair, but rather it's about Ashley's fascinating psyche.
I don't
know.
High
school traumatic or just like
it was not at all. It was like fine. It was like fine. It was It wasn't anything major. I don't know what. I don't know what it is. But I'm a Cancer sun, and Cancer suns live in the past.
Oh yeah, very much.
So
you're so tender and sensitive. I must admit, I offend you by on like your people, your kind. Because
Yeah.
I make these jokes, plus the Sag, like the Joker of the friggin' zodiac up in there, and I'm just like, I'm making an off-color joke, and Cancers are like, why did you kick me? And I'm like, yo, no, I didn't kick you. I'm a New Yorker from Buenos Aires, and the Leo and the Sag, and I'm sorry. And I am sorry because I'm very tender too. But then sometimes my jokes hurt Cancer's feelings.
You know, they need it though. And actually, these are the people that we're talking to today is the Cancers, the Libras of the world, the sensitive, the givers, the nurturers.
Yeah.
And there's some of this in all of us.
Yeah.
All of us. And
All
so
of us.
so I just want to pull it back for listeners.
Also amazing segue, by the way.
Thank you.
Like,
That's what I do.
Brilliantly. You managed me so well right there. Well done. Okay, so you're going to pull it back for listeners if they haven't listened to.
If they haven't listened to the re-air most recently of the episode that we did it in 2021. We were in the midst of being 100
years ago.
Whew. And I've listened to that so many times. I really have. It's my own show. And I love it. There's so many things that I pulled out of there about this idea of codependent behavior, of being wrapped up in taking care of others as a way of identifying your own worth, and how you have explained we can move past that.
Right.
And today I want us to get deeper into this idea that many of us are constantly in service to others, whether that be our partners, our children, we're in jobs where we take care of other people. And where that line is between taking care of others, being in service of others, wanting to make the world a better place, and that codependent behavior, where it becomes somewhat unhealthy. Do these worlds coexist? Yeah. How can we take care of others and ourselves? Like, I know you're the person to answer these questions.
Why, thank you. And I love this because you're right. This is the core of it all, right? Mm-hmm. Because to be a human, to be a pack animal, to be an animal whose nervous system must co-regulate with other nervous systems is to be an animal that must live in community, right? We are by design and definition here to be interdependent with other humans, right? And so that I often joke that the people who need my work, who need to work on their codependence the most, are the wildly independent, because they're just running from, right, their experience of like, well, I can't ask someone else to help me because then they'll have a feeling. And if they have a feeling, I can't manage it. And it's my job to manage it because I'm wildly codependent with them. But I mask it with independence, right? So when we realize that being that wildly, I am a rock, I am an island, independent is not the answer for co-regulating mammals, that we need each other, it behooves us to learn how to feel into the felt experience somatically, where soma means body in Greek and somatics are body-based practices. Feel into the somatic bodily experience of being in service versus living from obligation. Right? And for me, that's what it is. One is I want to, I'm available to. And one is I must, I have to, right? So much of my work is based in the nervous system and really working with our bodily experience of life. And so one of the shorthands I use is that sympathetic activation, which is fight or flight, which is anxiety, which is worry, which is adrenaline, which is, there's a lion chasing me. What it says is I have to. I have to do this. I have to get this done. I have so many things on my to-do list. I have to get the kids going. We have to go, right? It's I have to. It's anxious energy. It's not. There's no shavasana in there, right? Like that is, right? That is anxious energy, right? And when we live from there, of course we put other people ahead of us. Right? Of course we people please. Of course we try to keep everyone happy with us because, as you said so brilliantly, it's all about believing that our worth is something that must be earned and that we earn it by keeping others happy with us. It's a lot. It's like
okay, so You said the word obligation.
Yeah, that's the whole freaking thing of it.
Right? And I can only speak from my own experience, so apologies if I'm bringing up my own stories, but
I love your own story.
Okay.
Bring it. It's
It's
your
funny.
show.
I'm in life coaching school, or not life coaching, health coaching school right now. And so much that I'm learning is about working with clients. You know this as a life coach. It's letting them come up with their own ideas and their own goals. And yet wrapping my brain around the things that we're talking about and like the things that I get to talk about on this show, I can only live it through this experience. So I encourage listeners too, like if you're like trying to apply this to your life, think about specific examples because it does really help. So obligation. If I am obligated, or I'm not, if I am obligated to get up and take care of my family on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I love it. And yet I don't always want to do it. Is it something that we kind of have to like flip the switch in our brain or talk ourselves into like, how can I bring these together? Obligation and also want.
So there's okay, we're going to break this down. So there's obligation as a sensation, obligation as a feeling, obligation as a story. So for example, let's say there's a family gathering and you would rather do something with your friends that weekend, or instead of go to the family thing with your family of origin, right? Let's say you go from a feeling of obligation. I don't want to, but my mom's going to be upset. My grandma's going to be upset. What we're really doing, generally speaking, is trying to keep others from having emotions. Because again, like the wildly independent, I don't ask for help because I don't want people to have feelings, because I don't know how to manage their feelings, and it's my job to manage their feelings. So I try to keep them from having feelings. So I don't, right? You see this back and forth we're doing? It's living from obligation is the same thing. Right? We're trying to keep other people from being disappointed, upset, angry, and God forbid, bringing those feelings to us and asking us to be some kind of party to them and their management. Like, no. I would rather go and be anxious and nervous or hate it or be resentful and miss my friends and like have this lousy time. And side note, probably make others have contribute to others having a lousy time, because when we live from obligation, we don't show up with our full open-hearted selves, right? We show up as our resentful selves, and that's not cute, right? It's not a good look. It's not loving. It's not kind. It's like something someone else then has to manage instead of just be with, right? And so when we live from that energetic of obligation, what we're in is a false consciousness that we are being righteous and good and doing like some kind of right thing, when really we're just showing up as a poo-poo grumpy pants. Right? Right? And like we could fake it. We could be like, no, I'm totally happy to be here. But again, even that is like you're giving the people you claim to love most a false self. Instead of letting them have, you let them have feelings, right? So you back it way up to recognize, and you'll notice that I shifted from like feeding children to going to a party, so we can talk about it with a little less like someone might die, and then we can come closer into like, right? But so you start by backing way up. And the backing way up is to like getting somatically present with yourself, learning who you are, learning the signals from your own body, doing like the deep somatic work, body-based work that helps you to understand who you are in the world in relation to self and others, but self first, right? I mean, and you got trust work, inner child work. I mean, it's multifactorial and it's layered. Right? Which is not to be like, you can't do it. Quite the opposite. It's to say we go slowly, tenderly, thoughtfully. We use structures and systems to get us to there. And where we get to is recognizing that doing things that you don't want to do from obligation helps no one. And so it really comes back to aligning yourself with your values, with your priorities, and with your goals for your life. And sometimes that means like, I would rather be with my friends, but I haven't seen my grandma in a while. And like, she's 92. And while like going to the beach with the girls would be really fun, when I think about my values, my priorities, I want one more day of memories with her. So it's not the like what I most want to do, but from love for myself and this collective, I'm going to go to the party. I'm going to hang out with grandma. And I'm going to go with good energy, not obligation has to. Because the other thing is obligation energy is a complete lack of agency, right? Someone's making me, I have to, right? Like I'm a little kid subjugate too. I'm being put in the car seat, right? Like I weigh 30 pounds and what am I going to do here? But like, you're not 6 and you're not 16. You're not even, well, maybe you're 26 listening to the show. Hello, right? You do have agency. You do get to decide. You do have choicefulness. And I know it doesn't always feel that way, but I think that's a huge part of this. Right? So then if we bring it back down to you waking up and your 45 children are looking at you. They're so cute, by the way. Every time I see them on the gram, I'm like, Ashley makes a good looking baby.
Oh, you're sweet.
You do. You do. They've got like the best cheeks ever. So much good cheeks. Good job. So this is when it becomes a little more philosophical to say, like, stay with me here. You don't actually have to feed those children. You don't have to feed them. You don't have to water them. You don't have to feed or water yourself. You don't have to get up out of bed. You don't have to let the dog out. There's consequences for all of these choices. Like, let's be very, very, very clear. And some of those consequences are most dire indeed. But I think what's vital is to get out of the mindset and the somatic resonance of that I don't have choice story. Right? And instead, really allow ourselves the space to reclaim choicefulness so that we can do the things that we want the macro, right? We want the result. We might not want the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And so we get to remind ourselves of that and sort of ground our bodies in the fact that we are choosing to move towards our goal. And it's okay to not love every step in the middle. You know what this is actually bringing up for me? And I've been just going because I got excited.
This is
you
perfect.
Good? We good? We happy? We're good?
Really good because
okay, good.
You're answering exactly what I'm like working
right
through.
Okay. So, this makes me think of, the whole anti-fragility movement, which is like, we can complicate things there too. I can complicate anything, but where I'm going is this. When we fear emotions in ourselves and others, we take away a lot of our power.
Yeah.
So like, I love the coaching I do. When I coach in Anchor, because it's a 6-month program, we go deep and we do such powerful work. And do I love writing all the sales emails? Absolutely not. No, ma'am. No, I do not. No, I do not. No. But do I do it? And do I feel obliged? No. This is one of the steps, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the steps. I also don't BS myself. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I just love writing sales emails. Like, no. You know what it is? I come to neutral. That's what it is. I'm just like, this is a thing I'm doing, right? I don't love emptying the dishwasher, but I'm pretty fond of clean plates. Pretty fond. They're all right. On a scale of 1 to typhoid, I'll take a clean plate. Thank you very much.
This is okay. So the timing of this is kind of amazing. I just started reading The Courage to be Disliked.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
And that whole idea that we're afraid of ultimately upsetting others, that like interpersonal relationships are ultimately like the root of all challenge is exactly what you're saying. And
right.
I want to bring it back to this concept again of like living in service of others because you want to, because like you're saying,
we want to.
We do want to. And there are parts of it that we don't want to do. And that's life. That's life. But like ultimately, there is, when you've explored those values, is kind of what I think you're saying, is you've explored those values and you find what's important to you and you find why you wake up in the morning. Those things that are kind of annoying become a lot less annoying. And they just, you're able to move through them with gratitude. Am I summing this up in the right way?
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful that you're bringing in gratitude, right? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking, I went back to hospital, like I was a hospice nurse 400 years ago. And just to like be cleaning someone's bedpan at 3 a.m. and to hear that voice in me that's like, ew. And then to be like, girl, she's dying.
She's dying.
She's freaking dying. And you're no, I will not have it. So I don't ever shut my parts down. I don't ever scold them. I don't ever yell at them. I don't ever, people hear it like, I just want the mean voice to just go away. No, we embrace the mean voice. We give it love. And we give it some perspective. We help it to zoom out, right? And to say like, girl, she's dying. Yeah, you're cleaning a bedpan at 3 a.m. And do you know what this woman would give to be you, with the walking and the moving the hands and the talking and the going home when your shift is over? Which is not to guilt or to bring shame, or like, it's really just perspective. And perspective is really challenging at 3 a.m., whether you're changing a bedpan, whether you're working in, my partner's grandparents were coal miners, right? Like she's one generation out of the coal mines.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, life is rough out there in some like big ways for a lot of people. And I think when we can zoom out and get perspective, we can keep ourselves from inviting in unnecessary suffering and misery. That's what it is.
Unnecessary.
Unnecessary. When a person you love dies, you will suffer. You will suffer, you will grieve, it will be terrible. And what are you at? So I'm talking now, I'm realizing about the second arrow, the Buddhist concept of the second arrow. Life flings the first arrow, and then you have a choice. What will you add? What additional suffering will you choose? It's up to you. O sea, it doesn't always feel up to us, right? And that's based on your nervous system.
Okay.
Right? So let's like go in a totally different direction to come back for a second, because I want to honor trauma. So stress, distress, and trauma sets our brain towards a greater leaning in on the old negativity bias. That's science. Like, that's for real, right? And the idea of internal motivation, of being able to visualize, a you that lives in a better way, right? Like, it's all a little more challenging with a history of stress, distress, and trauma. And it doesn't mean you're perma-effed. It doesn't mean like what you've been through doesn't mean you can't change. I've been through some traumas, and when I say the word trauma, I mean like the clinical, right? Like I've been through some stuffs, and it took a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment to come back to being the like bunny I am, who sees the positive and who sees the like, which is to say it's possible if you want it. And if you don't want it, just don't have it. Right? You don't have perspective if you don't want to. And I'm being really earnest. Like, I'm not saying there's some like moral imperative to see the bright side or to zoom out and get some space. Like, you don't have to, but it's possible if you want it.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask some questions about that? You're talking about the somatic experience of coming back. Like, let's start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Before we're even able to grapple some of these codependent behaviors, is that you talked about really getting in the body and knowing the
Yeah.
self. What are we looking for in that scenario? Are we looking for like, in my mind, it's like what brings us joy, and like what else are we doing in those practices?
Yeah, to sort of generally get to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes, it's amazing what I'll hear in Anchored, like folks who sort of have no idea what they want, what they need, what they even like. And I get that. I chameleoned so hard growing up, right? I was like, "Oh, you're purple? I am now purple." Right? I will just shapeshift and be whoever I think you think you think I think you want me to be. Do you like it? Am I good at doing what you think you want me to be? And really, so first of all, just awareness, right? Like when and where am I me? Which may be very rare. It may only be with a puppy, or it's often with tender things, right? Like with dogs and babies and like trees and nature.
Mm-hmm.
And how and when and where. Notice I didn't ask why. Not interested. How and where and when am I not me? And how are the ways that I am shifting to be not me? And how can I support myself and give myself love? So again, the befriending thing, right? How can I love up on these parts of me that keep me from being me so that they know they are safe with me? So too, when we start to feel emotions, most of us shut them down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because from that
Mm-hmm.
codependent experience of life, we are carrying the story that having emotions is dangerous, it's stupid, it's dumb, it's bad. It's a pretty much bad idea for us and for anyone else, right?
Right.
So when I have an emotion, and here, let me back it up. A really easy bit of homework, because who doesn't love homework? Come on, we're
Give us
nerds
some
here.
tangibles.
Right? I love a tangible. Is just sit for a moment, get out your journal, right? Do whatever centering practice works for you, yoga, breathing, walking, shower, whatever. Come back to you, right? Get your little journal and really take a moment to think about what the easiest emotion is for you to feel, right? And that might be joy. Joy might be the most challenging, right? It might be anger. It might be frustration. Like, who cares? It's irrelevant. Whatever is like most facile for you to get into, go there and practice feeling it from inside. So not just from the story in your mind of what this feeling feels like, but what does anger feel like inside? Right? So do you want to do one together?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so what's an easy feeling for you, Ashley?
I'm kind of a puppy like you. Like excitement,
You are.
like
I know. I love
anticipation.
excitement.
Like
Yeah.
I get a lot of like, it's like nervous, but it's like good nervous, like
Yeah.
bubbles in your tummy.
Yeah.
And I feel that about a lot of things. I always talk about like my first cup of coffee in the morning, like that makes me excited.
I'm so excited. Do you ever get sad in the evening that you can't have any more coffee until tomorrow?
When I think about the next morning's coffee at like 9, I'm like,
oh man. I'm not allowed. Oh, I'm actually not allowed caffeine anymore. Full stop. But like it used to be. Oh my girl, please. But like afternoon, I'd be like, oh, it's 1. I have to live this whole long day without my coffee.
And I do a decaf. It's just not exactly the same, but you know,
it's not. It's not. Okay. Okay, so if we go into that excitement, that anticipation, let's say, okay, so it's like 9 at night and you're on the, like, I'm excited for tomorrow's coffee. Where do you feel it in your body? What happens?
I very much feel it as a part of like, I say my gut, it's that like tummy bubbly.
Yeah.
It like feels like bubbles. And I've recently in the last several years, probably since we've talked, stopped drinking alcohol. And I remember that's what this felt like when I would drink alcohol, that feeling of like a little bit of euphoria. I mean, it was dopamine, right? It was dopamine anticipation.
Drugs.
And that's what anticipation and excitement feels like for me, is like that like excitement bubbles in the tummy.
Oh, is there a color to it?
I always think of like I think of like champagne. This is funny
Oh,
that I'm
yeah.
playing with like alcohol, but like,
Really works.
like I think like that pinky, like sort of
Oh,
iridescent color.
Yeah. Is there a texture to it?
I just keep thinking of bubbles of
Bubbles.
like Pop Rocks almost.
Oh, I love Pop Rocks. God, I haven't had those in like 30 years. Right on. Is there a sound? Like, can you hear the little bubbles?
I make that. I just like automatically make that like that sound.
Yeah. I love it. So what we're doing by feeling into the felt experience and getting very Victorian with our adjectives and like really getting into detail about the what it feels like to have this emotion is that we're taking the experience of an emotion out of the brain and out of the prefrontal cortex. We're allowing the medial frontal cortex, our watcher, our third eye, our awareness to come online. And we're allowing the sensation to be in the body instead of just a cognitive process. And so what that does is starts to give us more information. Yeah. And so you may feel a bubble or two sometimes. You're like, oh, I know excitement's coming. Anticipation's coming, right? And so too, you might learn what the whisper of sadness is, the whisper of anxiety, the whisper of anger, right? And so we can begin to get in touch with those felt experiences in our body long before it's a story, long before it's something we're reacting to from our nervous system, right? Before we're yelling at partners and children, before we're grumpy in customer service, right? Like when we're chill and before the emotions got into 10, we can be responsive and not reactive and can take care of ourselves.
And what I'm hearing is like, and I think this is different than I thought coming into it, is that like, okay, we feel that feeling.
Yeah.
We're able to, and just, I mean, essentially like work with it a little, but we're not changing it. I think in my mind, I was thinking like, we'd want to like, oh, you're getting kind of anxious. Like, let's flip the switch and turn that around. And you're saying, no, we want to feel the feels.
When it is safe to,
okay,
we want to feel the feels. And so the safe to is important, right? And so for folks who are walking around dysregulated, who have an experience of stress, distress, or trauma that leaves them destabilized, right? Meaning you're not attending to your activities of daily living, meaning, right? You need some stabilization. Then this is not for you to do alone, my darling.
Got
right?
it.
You go get some professional help, that's beautiful to get professional help. That's what a delightful thing to do, right? And when it is safe to do it, we stay with the emotion because that's what allows it to process through the body, right? Instead of staying stuck energetically within our bodies and our nervous systems, right? Because the nervous system will hold on to activated stress until it is completed, until it gets completed, right? Until it gets completion of that cycle. And that's what we do in the modalities I'm trained in somatic experiencing, sensory motor psychotherapy, which I trained in as a coach. It's all about meeting the body so that you also so you really remember how to hold space in your nervous system for everything. And so you're never telling the story, oh, that's too much emotion. I can't feel that, right? I can't go there, right? Instead, you trust and believe and know that you have your own back, which to bring us back to the subject of being of service versus obligation. Who had a good segue now, huh?
Who's a podcaster?
Hey, how you doing? Right? So, to bring us back, it's when you have your own back like that and know that you can hold any emotion, whether it's champagne bubbles or like deep, painful pangs of sadness, and you can hold it. You're fine. Right? Like it sucks, but then you're fine, right? It's like feeding your family. Like some days it sucks, but you're fine. Then you can tell your mom you're not coming to that brunch or to Sunday dinner, right? You tell your partner you really need them to do XYZ around the house, right? You're able to have skillful, honest, direct conversations from knowing that regardless of what the other person says, you'll have your back. You're not going to abandon you. And your feelings won't murder you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that to be flip, because before I knew how to do all this stuff, I felt like my feelings would murder me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt scared, like the world would end if I said certain scary things. Like I remember feeling like the world is going to end. Like, and luckily it didn't. Right? And luckily, to my knowledge, having reviewed the literature quite meticulously, no one has ever died from having a feeling. But it can sure feel that way until we know how to have our own backs. Mm-hmm. So that's the work, right? Casual.
That's the work.
Casual.
Just, like
no big deal. Casual. Whatever. Just a little Cancer and a little Leo talking about working through some feelings,
joy, all those
feelings.
This is perfect because you've been doing some really amazing content around empaths, people that feel Cancers. I mean, the ones, all of us are at some level empathic, right? And those of us that tend to feel other people's feelings in a very big way, that can be extremely overwhelming. And my question to you is how, when doing that somatic work, when doing the work, can we decipher what is my feelings, my emotions, and what is someone else's? Do you have any tools for that?
Thanks for asking. I sure do, Ashley. That was my NPR voice. Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one, energetic boundaries.
Yep. What are your favorite tools for energetic boundaries?
Yeah, it's the way so I used to do this every day when I lived in Brooklyn, because I'm not going on the subway without energetic boundaries.
Yeah.
So I gather all of my life force energy sort of into my core, sort of a ball right in front of myself. And then I use my hands and really visualize creating an orb around myself, and just really hold that tight till it feels really well sealed, like I'm a little tiny Easter egg. And then I go out into the world Easter egged. It really helps.
It does.
It really does. It's pretty amazing. It's a good time. So energetic boundaries and so there's this story, right? Like, I'm an empath and say I feel everyone else's everything. No, baby, you're an empath with lousy energetic boundaries. That's why you feel everyone's everything, right? If I drop my boundaries, right? Also add my Claire's in there. Like, it would be a party of people's. Okay, like to wit, like, was it 2 weekends ago? I was wicked tired and I didn't have good boundaries, and my partner's grandmother keeps coming in, which is totally fine, right? Like, I'm down with Mildred. It's a good time, but like, usually I really appreciate consent to things, like there being an old Swedish lady in my field. Right. But that was on me because I hadn't done my spiritual hygiene. Right. I hadn't taken care of my energetic space. And she's harmless. She's really sweet. She wanted to know if we'd eaten any blackberries. It was a lovely experience, but I just was like, yo, right. We gotta manage our fields. So, all right. Well, how do we get to Mildred? Empaths. Yeah. No, baby. No, it's your boundaries, right? And that is a skill, and that takes time, and that takes practice, right? And particularly when we grow up in a household with codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing thought habits, when we have a history of stress, distress, and trauma, and disconnection from our own bodies, setting a words boundary is wicked challenging, and setting an energetic one is too, right? So like, I want to honor the both and here, you know? So, there was something else I wanted to say about empaths and feeling everyone else's feels. So the question was, how do I know if it's my feels or their feels?
Yeah.
You get to know your feels in advance.
Okay.
Right. So we don't practice setting boundaries when we're talking with the most challenging person in our world to set boundaries with. Right. Like you practice with your like kind, loving best friend.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Or with like, I don't know, your really sweet puppy. Or you know what I mean? You go where it's easy and allow your nervous system to really trust you and believe in you and feel that like it's okay, I won't die if I set this boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that when the stakes, like there's not even stakes.
Yeah.
There's no stakes, right? And the way I did that for years is I would turn to a beloved friend and I'd be like, "Hey, girl, can I just? I'm scared. I don't know boundaries. Like I'm practicing. It feels really weird, and like someone's not going to love me, and then I'm going to die. Can I try with you?" And finding the friend who's like, "Yeah, baby, do it. What do you want to set a boundary about?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." She'd be like, "Okay, well, tell me I'm not allowed to punch you." And I'd be like, "Oh." And she'd be like, "Okay, great. Now tell me I'm not allowed to borrow your lipstick." Right? You see, like, and just practice. And so same with empaths and feeling your feelings. You got to know what your field feels like, right? And what the energetic and emotional experience of being you is, so that you can recognize not you. That makes sense.
That's such a good answer. And I think about this a lot. I work with someone who we do human design and astrology joint readings, and like she's so good at talking about these empath gifts. And this is such a cool idea of like it's simple, right? You have to know your own emotions in order to decipher them from someone else's. And what I think is really encouraging about what you're saying is like often we think being an empath is a bad thing. Like somehow we've been told you're feeling the feels, especially sort of in the spirituality space.
That's
And in
the
fact, that's such a
patriarchy.
gift.
Yeah, it's such a gift. It's just like that. That is the BS of the patriarchy, right? Because feeling your emotions means you're a weak little woman, right? Because like anger's not an emotion, right? And like being emotional is like the worst thing you can do. It's so weaponized everywhere. Ugh, she's just being emotional. Don't be emotional. Oh, you're crying in a professional meeting, right? Having emotions is a beautiful thing. We need to reclaim it. And I think that's what the patriarchy does. It says, if we want equity and equality as women, we need to be the same as men. Forget about that. No. That can take a flying leap. No, we need to be just like ourselves and demand that the system change around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many like directions I want to go, but
right?
we
I
don't
know.
have much time. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so
yes,
we've talked so many things. We've talked about the somatic practices.
So good.
Being able to decipher emotions, being in service to others while also
which
remaining
is a beautiful thing.
Agency for yourself.
Yes.
Is there anything else, like since we last talked, we really got into those codependent behaviors. Is there anything else like in the last 2 years that perhaps you pivoted that you want to just like leave with listeners? Any like major ahas that you've really taken away in the last couple of years?
I mean, it really is the crux of, I now call codependent perfectionist and people pleasing thinking emotional outsourcing.
Okay.
Isn't that so good?
That's really good.
I felt very proud of it. Yeah, it was like one of the things that just struck me.
Right?
Because that's what we're doing. We're saying like, all y'all manage my emotions for me, please. I'll manage yours. And people are like, I don't want you to. And you're like, no, but I insist. And then you really insist. Anyway, so it really is about a deep lack of choicefulness. And I think the thing that the combination of somatics and cognitive work that I do has really helped me to see the power of coming back into a belief that we can make choices and that we can change our lives and the way we relate to ourselves and the world, and that we have choicefulness. Like it really is and that the road to choicefulness comes from and returns to presence, right? Presence and intentionality. And we really forget that.
Yeah.
And so we live from these default modes, these like mindless ways of living, and then wonder why we're not happy, why we're not joyful, why we're not free, why we're not, you know what I mean? We're not present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Yes.
Just like you.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
back and just like diving deeper. And will you let listeners know where they can find you, your podcast, your programs, things coming up, how they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my podcast is called Feminist Wellness. It is a certified good time. And you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. You can find that. If you head on over to victoriaalbina.com/yoga magic.
Ooh, we got a code. We fancy.
Look at you, your own code. There is a free present. So it's a suite of meditations, nervous system orienting exercises, inner child work. It's all for free. They're audio downloads. They're just for your listeners. So head on over, grab them, victoriaalbina.com/yoga magic. And lastly, you can follow me on the gram. I give good gram at Victoria Albina Wellness.
Thank you so much, Maria-Victoria. It was so good to be back with you.
Such a
I appreciate
delight.
you.
You're so wonderful. Thank you.